Alright guys, so a friend was asking about an affordable way to start doing videos for a website. They were going to do some tutorials, some status updates, and so they further clarified and said they were just planning on using their iPhone, and they further clarified beyond that and said they really hoped it wouldn't get too complicated. So let's try and navigate this minefield. Alright guys, real hot topic these days, recording videos. Maybe you're working for a company, you want to do some training materials, or maybe you want to do some status updates for a website, maybe you want to do a vlog channel. Whatever the case is, you don't want to spend a fortune, but you want to turn out a good product. So where do you begin? Well, I've laid it out to 5 bullet points that I would recommend everybody consider prior to even embarking on recording a video. These are the 5 points that you really need to consider if you're going to set up to do a repetitive video production type of environment. First bullet point is the space you're going to record in. What is the environment that you have available? Do you have a dedicated space that you can set up as a dedicated studio to do these videos? If you do, that's ideal and that's great. There's a ton of different tutorials and advice columns on the internet that will teach you and give pointers on creative lighting effects, decorating ideas, that kind of stuff. So that's great. But on the other hand, you may be in that group of people that doesn't have an environment dedicated. Like me, I have to record in a multi-purpose room. This multi-purpose room I use is something that I use for everything from work to recording music to hobbies to... I spend 80% of my time in there. And so one thing that, regardless which direction that you go, one thing that's very important is that you don't want to have to prepare to do a video. You don't have to clean things up. You don't have to move things around. If you do, you're going to just get turned off from doing the video if there's too much prep work involved. So that's why it's very important. So me, I do the green screen. Some people call it chroma key, but that's the direction that I took. Because if it's going to wait on me to clean up my multi-purpose room, that video is not getting recorded. So that's just the short end of it. Now, like I said, you either are going to create a space that you're going to set up as your dedicated studio, or you can do green screen. I'm going to give some tips on inexpensive green screen components and how to light those, and coming up later. Now, the reason you need to consider that environment first flows directly into bullet point number 2, which is your lighting. You have to consider the environment and how you're going to set up if you have a dedicated space or if you're going to do a green screen, because your lighting that you're going to need to consider is entirely different for both different environments. So depending on which direction you have the capability to go in, that's going to impact your lighting choices. Okay, now on to point number 3. 3 is a microphone, or audio in general. You need to have good audio. There is a lot of studies out there that show that people are actually less tolerant of bad audio than they are of poor video production. They'll actually be a little bit more tolerant to, maybe bad color grading, or maybe there's, some issue with the video. But when it comes to audio, there are some very big distractions, so if you're over there and you've got the washer and dryer thumping over here, and you got the dog barking out here, and there's street noise outside, you're going to lose people. So you really need to make sure that you tune out that environment to include a microphone that will, help to cut out some of the noise, get a better vocal quality, and really aid in the overall quality of the production. It's one of the most important things that you can do. Now, bullet point number 4 is, we already alluded to it a little bit, is your recording device. What are you going to use? Are you going to use an iPhone, or are you going to use an actual camera? iPhones are great. They're doing good picture quality these days, and you can really, turn out a pretty decent product on it. Now, on the other hand, there's a lot of purists that will tell you that cameras are much better because you have a lot of options as far as lenses and aperture and settings in the camera, frame rates. You have easy access to all that. Plus, you're not having to deal with, if a call comes in while you're in the middle of a recording. That's, those kind of things, those annoyances. So having a dedicated camera is, I think what most people gravitate to. Now, if you are going to use a camera, there's 2 points to look at there. One is that you need to make sure that the screen can flip out so you can monitor yourself and frame the shot. That's very important. So either it's going to have an articulating screen, or it's going to have a flip up, flip down selfie window or something, but some way that you can actually monitor yourself. Very important. The other aspect of a dedicated camera is that you need to have that microphone input that we already discussed. Never rely on the microphone that's just built into a device. You're just going to end up with poor quality. Your last thing that you need to focus in on is a video editing software. Don't think that you're going to get by. No matter how well you rehearsed your script, don't think you're just going to get by with, you know, just a one-take wonder. Again, if you have to do 100 takes to get something right, it's going to discourage you from even doing the videos in the first place. It's going to be too much work. So you need to become familiar with a video editing software. And depending on the environment that you selected in bullet point number 1, that can impact the software, because if you're going to do green screen, you're going to want a video editing software that is conducive, you know, and intuitive with green screen. So that's something. I'll go through a couple of those softwares coming up later. So those are your 5 bullet points. Now we can go into some hardware ideas, some, you know, inexpensive solutions as far as hardware, lighting, that kind of stuff. So stick around for that. Alright guys, so as I promised, here is my green screen setup. Nothing special. All this is one of those travel green screens that you flip out like a sunshade, you know, for your car. And it's 5 foot by 7 foot. And you can see that, you know, with a green screen, the important thing here is lighting. So with that in mind, you can see up here, I have 3 lights. The one pointed this way is for a hair light, because I sit on this stool often, or sometimes I'll stand. But you can see, so there's those lights, and then I have these lights down here that shine upward, and you can kind of see those. I just have them on little tripods. And so the idea with a green screen, what's absolutely necessary, is that you need to make sure that it's well lit. It has to be consistently lit. Otherwise you will fight the effect. So when it comes to lighting things like that, I'd actually, you know, because of my space concerns, I would rather have multiple small lights than certain large lights. And the reason why is because these are also portable. I could just unclip them. I use them on battery power, and I'm going to show you which lights those are. These particular models are, the small one in the middle there that's pointed this way are the old lights that I used to use. And they were Zecti brand, and I know there's a couple of manufacturers that have the same thing. The ones that are the main ones, the large kind of panoramic lights, those are the Viltrox, I believe. And I'll put some screens up of those so that you know what they are. Not that they're the best or the only ones available, but you know, I found they're a good light for the price. You know, for 35 bucks, you know, 40 on the outside, and then like I said, you can get a battery. You know, the large size batteries go for about a 2-pack for about $35. So altogether, you get a pretty decent light setup. And like I said, one of my driving factors when I select equipment is I want something that I can take portable with me. If I want to unclip it and go somewhere, or if I'm doing something out in the yard, or you know, covering a party or something, you know, I have that equipment available. I can just, you know, take it. Anyway, so that's the green screen setup. Nothing special, nothing fancy. The screen itself was about $30. Like I said, the lights were about $30 a piece. Now, like I said, it's a little bit more expensive, I think, if you go with a green screen setup, because you can't really get away with a lot of the simple tricks of setting up a dedicated studio where people are using, you know, like mechanics lights and things like that you can buy for $5 from the tool store, you know, and things like that. You know, and I'm sure there's probably some really low budget ways to do it, but you know, traditionally green screen was shied away from by a lot of people because of how expensive it was, but it doesn't need to be in this case. Okay guys, so we already talked about lighting the green screen. If you're going green screen, it's very important that you get the green screen lit consistently. You can't have shadows. You can't have creases. very important to make sure that that thing is lit consistently. So you've got to plan out your lighting scheme in order to do that. Now, whether you're doing green screen or whether you're doing standalone studio, these are the lights that I use for my main lights, and these are pretty basic, just Neewer or Newer, however they say that. You know, it comes with the barn doors. If you're going to buy these, I'd recommend just spending me a little bit extra money and getting the barn doors on them. And the reason why is because it helps you direct that lighting flow. And they're very nice light. Oh, another thing too is that if you buy lights, make sure they're always bicolor lights. Anything in video, you want to make sure it's a bicolor light. What that does is it allows you to tune out the light exactly for, you know, the environment. So if you needed to match, for example, incandescent lights in an existing house, you can kind of tune the light for that, or you can change the color temperature to more of a daylight setting. So that's something to keep in mind too. So that's the other part of the lighting setup. Now, as far as the audio, you can see now here is my microphone. That's what I'm recording on now, although I'm not directly in front of it. That's a shotgun mic, so you need to be directly in front of it, like this. And so now if I'm directly in front of it, of course it's out of focus, but that's going to give you a better quality. But these, there you go, that's a nice shot of it. So that's the Audio Technica AT875R, and it goes for about $180. But Amazon actually has a channel on their site where they were selling factory refurbished for about $130, which is a really good price for a mic of this quality. Now, this is not $1,000, you know, on-set, you know, kind of, you know, level of mic. But for the price, this is an incredible microphone. And you can see so when you run a mic like this, it's important to note too that this won't work unless you have a way to power it. It has to use phantom power to power it. So the way that works is that you can see I got the cable coming back here, and it goes here. These are different preamps that I have. The one on top is the one I'm using now, and it's a Beachtek. Just a single channel. It's pretty basic. It just does one mic in. Below that I have a Marantz that sometimes I use, but I think the Beachtek is probably a little bit better, and it also runs off of a 9-volt that lasts a little bit longer. But the Marantz is pretty good too, and the reason why is because it has 2 XLR inputs on the side, so it's, you know, individual channels. But that's the audio setup that I use, and the cord you see here coming out of the Beachtek, that's going into the camera, and so that's what's handling the audio. So that's your bullet point number 3, the audio and microphone setup. Okay, now for bullet point number 4, the recording device. Now, we already went through lighting, went through the environment. Well, we didn't so much go through my environment. There's nothing to see there. Let's just say there's a reason I have to do a green screen. So anyway, we went through lighting, went through audio, and now for the recording device. And you can see here that this is one of the cameras. So the camera that I'm recording on currently, I have 2 different cameras, and I use different ones for different purposes. The one that I'm recording on right now is the Panasonic G7. Now, for only about $500, and you can find it cheaper than that when it goes on sale, or they have blowouts or something. But and the camera's been around for a long time, so it's proven as being a very good camera. But for the vlogger, it's an excellent choice. The Panasonic G7 offers the microphone input and the articulating screen. Very useful camera, and it's micro four thirds format, so you can get some pretty good lenses, and you can adapt other lenses for it if you have something existing that you want to try and use. So that's one camera that I have that's a very good affordable option for a vlogging camera. What you see here that I'm showing is the Canon EOS M50. This camera's only been out for maybe a year or 2. But it has all the features that you need. It has the articulating screen, and it also has a mic input. And this camera goes for, I think the street price is probably around $600, maybe $700 now. Haven't looked it up in a while. I think I bought it at $700. But it was a full kit. It came with a lens and came with a case and all that. So it's a little bit more expensive than the G7, but a lot of people argue it's better with a faster autofocus. So you can do your own research there. But either way, to get the features in it that it has, you know, one thing that makes it even better than the G7, I think, what is a very valuable feature is that you can see that I have below this, even though it has an articulating screen on it, I use this larger 7-inch monitor to frame it. It makes it a lot easier to see. I can be farther away from it. So that's something to keep in mind as an added feature, is that the HDMI output of the camera actually allows you to monitor yourself while you're recording with it. So that's a great feature. So that's one thing that the Canon has over the G7 for the extra money that you pay for. Let's see what else. You can see up there, just to kind of reiterate, you can kind of see the setup there with the Beachtek. So anyway, in case you're wondering too, as an affordable solution, what all these devices here are clamped on, let me reposition here, but what all this is if you look at that rod that I have connected to it, all that is a shower grab bar. Okay, and on to our last bullet point, which is your video editing software. Now, I don't think this is a place I can really guide you in a whole lot, as it's really up to you to pick something that you're comfortable with, that's intuitive, that's within your level of the direction you want to go as far as how much you want to learn and invest into learning a software. There's some very basic stuff out there that's, you know, pretty simple to learn. There's Windows Movie Editor. If you're on a Mac, there's several things that you can use. There's some free softwares out there. But if you're looking to get into, you know, if you want to do some pretty powerful stuff, I can recommend certain softwares like Power Director was good. HitFilm is very good. What you see on my screen here is DaVinci. DaVinci Resolve is something that I just started using. I was using HitFilm on a lot of my videos, but I've kind of moved over to DaVinci, and in fact, now DaVinci may not be an option for you if you don't have a fantastic computer. It really needs a high-powered computer to run, so if you don't have that going for you, it may not be an option for you in general. But, you know, the key point to take into consideration when you are selecting a video software is that it really depends just on, you know, where you want to go with it, how much you want to spend, you know, and if you are using green screen, as was pointed out before, that may influence, you know, that's going to really greatly influence. So if you are planning to go the green screen route, you want to find a software that's going to make green screening as easy for you as possible. Once you learn your settings and learn how to do that, you know, you don't want to spend a lot of time going in and doing a bunch of rigmarole to get the green screen working on all your videos. So, you know, that may be a major determining factor in the software that you choose. But like I said, there's a lot of great softwares out there now. You don't have to get crazy. You don't have to go with Adobe Premiere or, you know, something to that effect. There are some great softwares out there. DaVinci is free, which is amazing for how powerful it is. If you want to get all their prepackaged effects and things like that in there, you can buy DaVinci Resolve Studio, and that is the paid version of the software, and you're basically licensing all the add-ons that come with it. But as far as the software itself, it is very powerful, very complex, but at the same time, there's also a lot of community training materials on it. You won't find a shortage of training materials from YouTube or from Blackmagic's website. It's a very powerful software, you know, especially for free. But like I said, there's other softwares that you can use. In the past, I've used Power Director, I've used HitFilm. Power Director is great for having some really great like credits creators, you know, like those kind of composite shots, creating titles and headers and movie credits and things like that. It has that built in, and it's really a great software for that. You know, and HitFilm has a lot of good effects in it if you're actually looking at doing that kind of you know, production in your studio. But anyway, just try some out. The only thing I can really tell you is that you don't have to pay a fortune for software. That's the thing, but you do need to pick and learn the software. So, hope this was informative. I hope it was, you know, taught you something that you didn't know before. But like I said, the end goal here is just to get you to start to thinking that if you want to do a video channel, these are the things that you need to think about. Very important. So, anyway, talk to you later.